Hi everyone! So today we're going to be doing a little bit of a Hoya repot, and I do want to state up front for anybody who's new here, this is a repot and chat style video, but I do talk quite a bit about the plants that I'm repotting in my repot and chat videos. However, I do usually give some life updates as well, so this will probably be a little bit of a mix of the two. But I have 3 Hoyas I want to repot today, and I want to start off by mentioning I have stated in the past, Hoyas really don't need to be repotted very often. They actually really kind of like to just establish their roots to the point that they're root bound, and then they kind of stop spreading their roots. Like, it's really takes a long time for a Hoya to get so root bound that you would be like, oh my gosh, I've desperately got to repot this. So that is not the reason we are repotting these ones today. The reason we are repotting these ones today is, well, there's several reasons. So the first plant that we're actually going to be repotting is my Hoya wayetii. I absolutely love this plant. I've had this plant now, I think I'll have had it for 5 years in January, and it has grown a lot, and especially this year during the spring and summer, it's gone crazy. I mean, we've got crazy long vines going on, and the thing that I have found is I am having to water this plant way more frequently than I used to. It is just in a little 3-inch pot, and it is really got a lot of roots going on in there. So I am having to water it more because it's finally established its root system and because it is putting out so much more foliage, to the point that I'm having to water it at least every 4 days. Like, I can't go past every 4 days, and I want to be able to go past 4 days. It's also in, it's hard to tell, you'll see better when I get it out of here, but it's in one of those kind of flimsy clear pots that I'm not a huge fan of. So that's the main reason we're going to be repotting this one, and we are barely going up in size. That is another thing I always recommend when repotting Hoyas, is barely go up a pot size. So I think this is technically a 4. Yes, so this is technically a clear 4-inch pot here. Once again, this is a 3, so we're only going up 1 inch, which normally with most plants, when I say go up 1 pot size, I mean 2 inches. But I just don't want to overwhelm this plant when I don't need to. So that's what we're doing today. Now this plant is, I do believe, I'm gonna start getting it out of its pot. I believe it is in my epiphyte mix already. And regardless of whether it is or not, we are putting it into my epiphyte mix. So that's what I've got mixed up in this tub over here. Now, if you're not familiar with my soil mixes, I will include a link to my video all about those down below in the description for you. But basically, Hoya are epiphytes in the wild, so they grow on trees, some grow in crevices of rocks, etc. So they want a nice, chunky, airy soil. Okay, it is out of its pot, and there you can see all of the roots going on there. I really have no desire to try to remove any of this soil, and I shouldn't need to because it does look like it is actually my epiphyte mix. So all I'm going to do is, I've got the new pot ready here. We're going to put a little bit of the epiphyte mix down into the bottom, trying not to have the plant sitting too high. We can put a little bit more. It's always a guessing game with how much, and usually I put too much because I get to chatting away with you guys and I don't pay attention to what I'm doing, and then I filled the pot too much. Now, downside to the fact that we are repotting this plant today is I watered it yesterday, and I knew I was going to film this video today, and I was just going about my watering, and I watered it, and as soon as I finished, I was like, I should not have watered that plant. I'm planning on repotting it in the morning. So it's going to get a little bit of a watering. I'm going to explain what we're going to do in a second. I can hear Scooter crying somewhere. I'm not sure what he is crying about. Might have to go check on that in a second. Okay, I think that's good. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to dampen the soil that I've already put in here so that what's underneath the already damp root ball of the current plant is also damp. And then after we get it filled back in, I'm literally going to attempt to lightly water just the outside part of the new substrate that we put in there. Okay, so that's damp. I did also decide to put this in a little clear Tupperware thingy because I hate when I'm repotting and I get the tray that I'm using all wet and then all of the substrate sticks to it. It's just a pet peeve of mine. It's not really a big deal, but pet peeve of mine. Now this is going to be a pain in the butt to fill in around the sides because the leaves are so packed around here. You know what I might attempt to do, you guys, which I never do this and I don't know why. Sometimes you guys point it out to me and then I forget. And it's going to be crappy because, as I mentioned, the pot that this was in is one of these super flimsy pots. But what I think I want to do is set this in here and try to fill the substrate in around it first and then set the plant in there, because it's going to be easier than me trying to get into here to fill it in, because this is only one size larger pot. But you guys, seriously, just this one size larger is going to make a difference in how frequently I'm going to have to water it. Trust me. As long as I can get down to having to water it only once a week instead of twice a week, I will be happy. So this technique that I'm doing right here would be easier if this wasn't a flimsy pot, but hopefully we can still make it work. And another trick is you guys could do this with the plant still in the original pot, but that doesn't resolve my current problem, which is I can't get around all those leaves to fill in. So it wouldn't make sense to leave the plant in the pot and do this in this particular case. And these huge chunks of bark I'm gonna have to keep out of here because they just are not going to fit in this tiny space. And then when I wet this down, so I'm going to leave the pot in the center here, and I'm going to go wet this down, and hopefully that will help it stay pressed to the sides enough so that when I take the flimsy pot out, the soil doesn't fall into the center, and we can just pop the wayetii in there. Well, here comes Scooter. He was taking a nap until right when I decided to press record, because that's how it always goes, right? I thought maybe he was looking for a toy or something, but there's a toy right in front of him and he's not playing with it. So I'm not sure what he's up to. But if you hear him, that's who you're hearing. All right, I think I've just about got this filled in enough. Put a little bit more over here. And then I'm going to make sure there's not any gaps further down where maybe a piece of bark or something is preventing it from going down. What's going on, Scoots? Now he's just staring at the oven. I don't know. Oh, why are you crying? We can play after this. Now he's just staring at the counter. So for anybody who doesn't know, Scooter is my three-legged cat. And every now and again, he will just go stare at the counter like he's having FOMO, because he knows the other boys can get up on the counter. And so periodically when I'm getting ready in the morning in my bathroom, I will just pick him up and put him on. Now he's got the zoomies, which a three-legged cat can have the zoomies, you guys. He's really good at having the zoomies. But yeah, I do put him up on the counter sometimes in my bathroom just so he doesn't feel like he's missing out. But I kind of actually enjoy the fact that he can't jump on the kitchen counters. One less cat to try to keep off the counters, which, you know, I don't know why I try. I'm never really that successful. Okay, this looks like it is filled in nicely all the way around. So I'm going to go water this. And this also helps because then I'm not also going to potentially be watering the plant that was already watered yesterday. Okay, guys, fingers crossed when we take this out, it stays in place. But even if it doesn't, at least we can say we tried. Success. Okay, so happy that that worked out. It's going to be so much easier to just set this in here now, like so. Although I did not account for the fact that it is slightly wider at the top, and I think that because the pot was flimsy, I probably put a little bit too much up there at the top. I did. Let me see what I can do about this. Trying new things is always so fun, huh, guys? So fun. Just gonna kind of press the top part in a little bit more to make it thinner. Some of it's probably gonna fall out, that's fine. And of course my hands are gonna get super messy because now everything's wet, but whatever. I wonder if I somehow accidentally got some in the bottom and it's sitting too high. Well, we tried, you guys. We tried. We really did. Let me see if I can dig some out of the bottom here. And so much for my tray staying dry. All right, you guys, this isn't working. That's what I've decided. I have decided that this is not working. So what I'm just gonna do, I'm gonna dump some of this. I'm gonna dump most of this out into here except for the bit in the bottom. I'm gonna get a different tray and we are just gonna attempt to fill in with the wet soil around it, which is gonna make a complete and total mess, but it is what it is. Okay, let's see if we're at the right height. We are at the right height. Now I just gotta figure out getting around these leaves, which is gonna be a pain in the butt. This is one of those times where I really just wish I had somebody to help me. This is just going to be a messy affair, you guys. But while I'm doing this, our other two Hoyas that we will be repotting today, one is my Hoya curtisii. I suspect that I need to be watering it more frequently than I have been, kind of like how I now have been needing to water this one more frequently. I think it hasn't been growing quite as much because I haven't been watering it as frequently and it's gotten more root bound, I'm sure. And it's almost the same age as this plant. And I've never repotted it. This is the first time. Well, except for when I got these plants, I repotted this one, the wayetii, into my epiphyte mix when I got it because it was in just a straight like peat mixture, which is not good for these plants. But I put it back in like the same size pot. Like I didn't up pot it or anything like that. But I have not repotted it since then. And the curtisii I have never repotted because it was in, I think we're gonna find out when we take it out of its pot, but I'm pretty sure it was in like almost straight orchid bark. And so that's fine for these plants as well. And so I just left it in there, but that plant is also not in a clear pot. And you guys know I really prefer to have my plants in clear pots. Scooter's just going crazy, you guys. He's going crazy. He's trying to climb on the table over here now too via the chair. But yeah, so I want to get my Hoya curtisii into a clear pot so I can have a better idea of how fast it's drying out and can adjust my watering accordingly. But I don't necessarily feel like it needs to go up a pot size. And these clear pots are about the same size as the original nursery pot that it's still in. Oh, hold on, you guys. Scooter. Okay, he was trying to get up on the table and there's stuff up there that he can potentially break. Oh, I snapped a leaf. I don't know if you guys can see that, like right there, there's milky sap coming out. I bent the tip. That's why I don't like trying to get around these leaves like this, and I'm having a hard time getting this soil in here, so I'm just gonna use my little metal chopstick here to help kind of get it to work its way down. Okay, I think Scooter's just gonna chill on the chair now, but yeah, there was stuff up on the table that I'm worried about him potentially knocking off and breaking, so I didn't want him to get up there. Looks like he's just gonna chill for a bit now. But yeah, so we will be repotting the Hoya curtisii next. And then the third Hoya that we're gonna repot today is actually my Hoya linearis, which I also just noticed when I grabbed it for this repot that it is flowering again. It hasn't flowered since, I honestly can't even remember. I think it was maybe back at the very beginning of the spring was the last time it flowered. And if you guys don't remember, I had been putting off trimming that plant. It had gotten way too long. Like I had it wrapped up around the wire part of the shelf that it lives on in my living room behind my couch because I just didn't want to trim it because it had bloomed for the first time and all the peduncles were on the very ends of the vines. And I was like, I'm going to have to cut them off if I trim it. So I've been like putting it off and I was finally like, I need to trim it. I need to just trim it. It was looking like it was weighing the plant down and I didn't want it to like pull the plant out by the roots or anything like that. So I gave it a trim and I put the trimmings into water to propagate them with the intent of adding them back up into the top of the plant to make it a bushier plant, because that is what I have been doing over time with that plant, even though I've only actually trimmed it and propagated it, I think maybe 3 times. And I think one time I didn't go back into the top, but since I do want to make it fuller and bushier, and it is in one of these flimsy 3-inch pots as well, I decided I'm just going to take it up to one of these 4-inch pots, like what we just put the wayetii in, and we'll add in the propagations from the last time I trimmed it. But I did notice that there are new peduncles or new flowers, maybe from the same peduncles, kicking off. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. So you guys will get to see that. I don't think any of them had opened yet when I was looking at it. But luckily, right before, so I watered this plant yesterday, right? And then right before I started to water the linearis, because it needed to be watered too, was when I had the dawning realization of, oh crap, I'm planning on repotting these tomorrow. I shouldn't water this. So at least the linearis wasn't watered yesterday, so it should be a little bit easier to work with. I cannot for the life of me remember how long ago I watered the curtisii. I feel like maybe it's been at least a week, so we're probably okay on that one, but I don't know, because like I said, it's not in a clear pot, and I feel like it's probably been drying out more quickly than I realized. That's why I'm thinking I should be watering it more. And so we'll see. We'll see what we see when we get that one out of the pot. This is such a pain, you guys. Such a pain. It wouldn't be much easier with dry soil either, because this is just super tight, but it is what it is. I'm going to keep working this in here and catch back up with you when I'm done. Okay, guys, that was insanely tedious, but I think I managed to get it pretty well filled back in there. So I'm not seeing any gaps or anything. That is crazy. Just to give you guys an idea, I'm not sure how long it's been in this video for you guys so far, but according to my camera, I've been recording for 35 minutes. So yeah, that was fun, but at least it's now in its nice new pot. And the nice thing is I checked and it will still fit in its little stand that it's been living in this pot. So that's good too, because I was kind of worried that it might not fit there anymore, and I really didn't want to find another place for it to live. Okay, let me clean this up a little bit here. I'm just gonna mix this little bit of damp soil in with the dry soil in here. The dampness will be absorbed by the dry parts. Don't want to waste anything. All right, let me get rinsed up. Okay, guys, like I said, we're gonna do the curtisii next, which is looking nice and beautiful and lush and full. But like I said, I just feel like it hasn't been growing as much, and I've been having more leaves dying off. So hold on, let me pop this one out that's dying off for you so you can see. So I've had a lot more yellowing leaves going on like this, so something's happening. So I want to get it into a clear pot. This does look a bit damp. Where's my phone? Let me see when the last time I watered it was. Okay, so I was right. I said it was at least a week ago, I think. So it was 7 days ago. I had been going approximately, I think 14 days between watering on this one. So I don't know. We're just gonna see what we see here. And I'm really hoping I don't have to actually add any soil to this one. I'm hoping I can just put it directly into one of these clear pots without needing to really do anything else, because the main goal here with this one is to get it into a clear pot so I can keep a better eye on how quickly it is drying out and adjust my watering accordingly. Okay. Yeah. All right, so this one is not crazy root bound, which is kind of shocking to me because I was expecting it to be a little bit more root bound. So I'm hoping this doesn't mean that I have at some point just underwatered this to the point that we had kind of root die off from it being too dry and that it's rerooted itself since then. But hopefully you can see this is very chunky substrate here. It looks like straight up like an orchid bark mix. So I don't really want to have to add anything to this, but I might have to. Let's see. Oh, come on. Tell me that you're going to fit, please. No? All right. Well, it looks like I'm going to have to remove some of the substrate from up around the top to get this to fit. but I'm kind of okay with that because there's not like a ton of roots all the way around the top here. So we're gonna see if we can make this work. I really hope we can make this work because the next size up for pots that I have, I think it's a 6, and I don't want to take this to a 6. It does not need to go to a 6. It's not root bound enough, even remotely, for a Hoya, in my opinion, to go to a 6. So let's just see if we can get enough off the top, perhaps. I'm really trying hard not to mess up any roots in the process here to get it to fit into this pot. Let me see again. All right, you guys, it is most of the way in there. There's like a tiny bit of space below, but because these are epiphytes, I'm not that worried about it with a Hoya. Oh, I broke some leaves off. That's okay. I didn't have to squish it too much to get it in there. And thankfully, because it was damp still, it had a little give, and it was only at the top where it really had to compress, you guys, and that's where there was less roots. So I'm not really that concerned about having had to do that in order to get it in there. All right, you guys, that leaves the Hoya linearis. I'm sighing because I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I don't know. You never know how a repot video is going to go until you get into it. And this is one of those where I'm seriously thinking to myself, like, is it even worth it to release this video? Like, oh my gosh, it's just a hot mess. But this one, hopefully this will be a third time's the charm. Third plant will be easier to do. It is a tiny bit still damp. I don't even know if you can tell, but it's at the point of about needing to be watered. So it's kind of the perfect time to do that. But also hopefully you can see, I feel like up here, because I let it get so long, I feel like they're starting to kind of pull out of the soil. And once again, flimsy pot situation, which is not fun either. So let me show you the flowers that are kicking off first. And I'm not sure if they're on a vine that I trimmed or not. I wonder if I can tell. No, this looks like a vine, one of the vines that I didn't trim. Let me trace it up a little higher before I say it wrong. Yeah, this is one that hadn't been trimmed. Hopefully you guys can see the little peduncles. There's 2 on one vine here, and I have never had 2 on one vine before. Are those the only 2 I'm seeing? Now that I've kind of tangled everything up. Let me get it back out here. Those are the only 2 I see right now, but that's exciting. And I didn't trim every single vine, so maybe some of these other vines that didn't get trimmed will start to put out some flowers here soon too. But even some of the ones I did trim have started to grow again. That's this U-shaped bit of growth you're seeing right here is coming from a vine that I trimmed. There's the trimmed in there. So this plant is going crazy. This right here is actually one of the vines from the last time I threw extra cuttings up in the top, I believe. Here's another one over here that's a little bit shorter, is also from one of those. So I just want this to be more full. I mean, this was like a baby when I got it. And I've probably had it for definitely 4 years, I think. They were hard to find for a while, and then I started seeing them everywhere, and then they disappeared again. So I'll flash up on screen when I originally got it and what it looked like, because I mean, it was just a tiny baby. And so that's why I've been adding back into it. So let me actually get the wayetii is kind of a little bit in the way. Let me move. It's getting caught in everything. Let me move this. Okay, so this is the massive jar of cuttings that I was thinking I was going to add all of these in with this, but I don't know if we're going to be able to fit them all in there. I mean, this is a lot of cuttings. So I basically cut every single vine that I trimmed up into, I think, 2 or 3 node segments. And I just realized, so first of all, you guys, we definitely have roots, lots of roots growing down in there. Hopefully you can see. This has just been sitting above my kitchen sink in my west-facing window. But I also see we already have new growth. So hopefully you can see right there is where this one was trimmed, and it's already started to grow again. But on one of the vines that was an end cut, there's a flower. There's a flower starting. It's just been rooting in water. But right there is a peduncle that is kicking off. So I definitely want to put that one in here. But once again, I don't know if we're going to be able to fit all of these. And I could go up another pot size. Let me grab a pot that's the next size up. Okay, so I thought all I had in terms of clear pots that were the next size up from the 4 inches here were 6, but this is actually a 5. It just looks so much bigger. I don't know, doesn't that look like massively bigger to you? I mean, it's clearly not, but it just, to me, it looks massively bigger. But this, I feel like, I don't know, like if I want to add all the cuttings, I feel like I need to go to this, maybe. But also, hopefully you can see, this is not super rooted. And I don't know why this plant has never gotten as rooted as, for example, what we saw in the wayetii, which was also in a flimsy pot like this. I don't know why. Don't know why. So I'm really hesitant to take it up bigger than a 4-inch. So what we might do, even though I really don't need another plant that I have to, oh, are you flowering too? Oh, there are more peduncles kicking off on the end of one of these. That's good. Okay, I'll quit getting distracted by the flowers. So I could also just pot whatever won't fit in here comfortably up as a separate plant, and then the next time I repot these, combine them, but it's just so much more difficult that way. And you usually do end up having to remove substrate off of at least one of them to be able to get them to fit in there, if that makes sense. So I don't know. We're going to just start off by, let me remix up my epiphyte mix, since I tossed some of that wet stuff in there. And this is already in my epiphyte mix. I did repot it when I got it because it was in a highly peaty based mixture that was not good for the plant. All right. Just get this out of here. Actually, it does seem more damp than I thought it was, but that's okay. And I want to get this, make sure it's pretty low in there, just because I felt like some of those vines were starting to kind of pull up out of the soil. So I think that's a good height. All right, so the only downside here is, grab one of these. Where's the one with the flower? Okay, of course, trying to get just the one I want out is not going to be easy, is it? Oh no, because all the roots are like kind of tangled up in the bottom. Let me grab another tray to untangle these on. Okay. Let me see what we're working with here. Is that a mealy? Okay, it's not a mealy. Oh my goodness, that freaked me out. I think some sap, probably when I first propagated these, leaked onto this leaf, and it looked like a mealy because, as I keep mentioning, I need to go get my eyes checked, you guys. But it's not. I mean, it's hard as a rock, so it's just dried sap. So that's good. Okay, didn't need that panic attack. All right, come here, flower one. Please separate from your friends. Come on, detangle. There we go. Let me grab my snips, which I thought I had already brought out here, but apparently not. Okay, I want to remove the 2 lowest leaves because they're gonna get buried anyway when I do this. So we're just gonna get those off of there. And then I thought about possibly even removing the next 2 up because there's a little root there, but then that would be a lot of stem to be buried, and that makes me a little bit nervous because I don't want anything to start to rot. So I'm just going to stick this just kind of on the side and just kind of let it rest against somebody. Which side do I want to put it on? So we'll go over here, so that it is just kind of in place when I start to try to fill this in. And there's still room between it and the side. So I think what we're going to do is we're just going to kind of line these around the side. I don't want to pack too many in. And then we're going to start adding in. Now the nice thing is, because these leaves are thinner and not as tight together, it should be a little bit easier than on like the wayetii to get the soil in there. But we shall see. All right, let's see. And I could have removed, probably should have removed some of these lower leaves when I put them in water. Don't ask me why I didn't. That was quite a while ago at this point. Don't know where my brain was at that point in time, but wasn't thinking about that, clearly. All right, so while I'm just going around getting these pieced in here, maybe I will give you a little life update. So I think the last time I gave you guys a life update, job things were crazy. Like, I kind of recommended the company that I've been doing the part-time work at to people, and then I felt really bad about it because they had an acquisition. I don't even remember what all I told you the last time we talked about it, but basically Facebook, for all intents and purposes, bought like half of the company. And we were kind of like, we don't know what's going to happen. But the aftermath of that was that a lot of the very large clients, like the largest clients that the company had, decided to bail on the company and use a different company instead. And so there was this time period where it was like work was really sparse, I guess. And like, I don't know, the whole thing was like a hot mess. I don't even know what was going on. I was freaking out. Like, I wasn't bringing in enough gap income when all of that happened. And so it was a really kind of stressful time. And then out of nowhere, because that is just how it seems to go with this stupid company, I am now making more money than I have ever made at this company. And I'm making more money than I have ever made in my life on a per week basis, working the fewest hours I have ever worked on a per week basis. It is crazy, you guys. So I did find out that they had started implementing this new screening test, which when I started with them, I did a screening test. And then like 2 days later, they decided to change the screening test to a new screening test and made me do that one, even though I had just done the original one. So I was like, oh my gosh. So I'm not surprised that now, like a few years later, they've changed it again. But what I found out was, through the grapevine, if you will, that part of what they were testing for was determining a pay tier. So I guess I should put it this way, depending on how well you did on this test, you either got classified as tier 1, tier 2, or tier 3, with tier 3 being the highest pay and tier 1 being the lowest pay. And this particular screening was not involved in the screening that I did. And instead of just giving those of us who had already done previous screenings, like the tag saying, well, obviously they already know how to do this, they've been working for the company for a while, we don't feel the need to make them test again. They didn't do that. But did they give us all the screening test? No. They ended up not making us, but it ended up working out to where we found out through the grapevine that this was going on, because we found out people were making more. We're like, how are you making more? Like, you're doing the same thing I'm doing. And so we come to find out there's this new screening test. So we start saying, I want to take this test, because if it means I can potentially get paid a higher amount, throw it at me, right? So I find out about this and I'm like, are you kidding me? So I tell them, I say, I want this test. Reached out to support and said, I want this screener. And they came back and tried to talk me out of it first, and I understand where they were coming from, because some people kind of screwed themselves over, because I guess they thought they were going to pass it, and they passed it, but they didn't pass it at the highest tier, and they were already getting paid tier 2, and then they passed the test at tier 1, so they got a reduction in pay. And then some people were like, give it to me, and failed it. And so now they can't work on certain projects because they failed it. So there was like a risk in taking it. But I was like, I'm pretty, not to toot my own horn, but I'm pretty smart. And it was like a basic reasoning, you guys, basic reasoning screening. So like, as I give it to me, I took it, I passed it, and I immediately got like a almost threefold pay increase because I aced it, right? So I was like, all right, great. I wish I had known about this a year ago when they launched it, right? So then out of nowhere, I got on this new project, and they decided they were going to start rolling out squads. And it's funny to me because everybody who is new to the company within the last year thinks this is some big new thing, but it's not some big new thing, because I used to at one point work as a manager level person for them, overseeing a squad. Squads used to be the norm. Like when I started working for the company, there were squads. Everybody was in a squad. Like it was like your group of people that you worked on projects with, right? So I don't know why everybody's acting like this whole thing is like brand new, but they decided to roll it out at project level instead of company wide this time. And instead of having W-2'd employees, which is what I was when I was working as a manager overseeing a squad, they decided, you know what, why don't we just have the contract workers, which is what I have been since they furloughed and then just let go all of us managers, because at one point they did away with squads only to bring them back again 4 months later. It's crazy, you guys. So they decided, let's just take the contract workers and we'll just give them some incentives to be a squad leader. And it's so ridiculous, you guys, because when I was a squad leader as a manager W-2 employee, I had to work 40 hours a week. I now am doing the same thing, and I had a set schedule too. Like I couldn't pick my own schedule really when I was W-2'd. Now I'm doing the same thing, but I can work whenever the heck I want, and I'm only required to work 5 hours a week. But I'm making buku more money. And that's on top of the fact that I got the pay increase from doing the screening. So I'm just like, I don't even know what's going on with this company. This company crazy, you guys. I'm telling you, it's crazy. Crazy company. But at least I'm back to making money and not like panicking and freaking out and thinking I'm going to have to go get a regular full-time corporate job again. So that's what's going on with that. But I also am not holding my breath that the work's not just going to dry up again like it did. And it seems to be a little bit cyclical because a lot of these clients are on contracts. But because things were so bad before, when I was saying that I thought I might have to get another full-time like corporate job, I've been busting my butt, working more than I probably have to, because ideally you would think now that I'm making more, I could work less, especially since I'm only required as a squad leader to work 5 hours a week, which I'm not going to do that to my squad. That would only working 5 hours a week would not be enough to sufficiently help them, which is my job, right? So I'm not going to do that. But you would think I could work less hours because I can make close the financial gap that I need to between what I'm making from YouTube and associated revenue streams in a shorter number of hours. And while that is true, all I see is I'm making like almost double, actually a little more than double what I was making before I took the test to get the pay increase and before I agreed to be a squad leader. And all I keep thinking is, yes, you only need half of that, but what happens when the work dries up again? So now I'm like frantically trying to make as much money as possible just so if the work dries up again, I'm not totally freaking out. So I'm actually probably working a little bit more than I was even before. And so I'm still stressed out. I don't even know, you guys, but that's what's going on with that. Okay, I don't know if I should squish any more in here. How many are left? This one only has like hardly any root on it at all. There's just one little tiny start of a root. All right, 1, 2, it's a one noter. 3, 4. Oh, there's only 5 left. Should we just shove them in here? I'm doing weird things today, you guys. Weird things. I'm just gonna do it. If some of them like die off, they die off. And if I have to repot it more quickly, oh well, whatever. We're just gonna do it. It's the kind of mood I'm in. But in other news, some of you might be wondering if I'm going to be going to the International Aroid Show. Let me try that again. International Aroid Show's Tropical Plant Expo this year, because Palm Street sent me to that show last year. And I know you guys really enjoyed my video that I filmed from the show. Palm Street, did I even tell you guys? I think I told you. I tell you what, you guys. I don't remember what I've told you lately. I've been working also as a brand ambassador for Palm Street in the sense that I've actually been going to shows and promoting them at shows versus just going and filming and being an influencer at a show, if you will. Like I actually go and talk to people and I'm like, hey, have you considered signing up for Palm Street to sell on Palm Street and stuff? I've been doing that, but they've been sending me to reptile shows, which I like reptiles, but I don't own reptiles and everything. So it's been kind of weird, but I'm like, all right, fine. And so I was hoping to get sent to some more plant shows. I was hoping they would send me to the IAS show again this year, but the owner of Palm Street came down with a new mandate that apparently they have decided they have saturated the plant market, which honestly they have, and they're going to focus on other areas. So they're actually going to start decreasing their presence at plant-based shows. And he specifically stated that basically he doesn't want to do any influencer stuff. Like he doesn't want to pay influencers to go to the show and film anymore. So I was like, well, maybe they'll send me as a brand ambassador. But then when he said they're trying to cut back their presence at plant shows, I was like, great, they're not going to send me. So I'm maybe not going. It is next weekend. I say maybe because I'm also contemplating, you guys are going to think I'm freaking crazy. Maybe I am. I'm contemplating flying in on day one and flying out on day one. Is that crazy? I feel like it's kind of crazy, you guys. I feel like that might be a bit much, but also I won't have to pay for a cat sitter, find a cat sitter, deal with all of that kind of stuff. I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to do it or not. I'm trying to keep an eye on plane ticket prices because they were kind of expensive when I checked a few weeks ago, but I know the closer you get, sometimes if they haven't filled the flights, they'll start to drop them. So it is Sunday. So we got 6 days before the show happens at this point. I don't know. I might go, I might not. You guys might get a video, you might not. I don't know what I'm doing, but we'll see. I really want to go. I'm gonna start filling this in now because I think I got, and this is crazy how many I put in here, but okay, whatever. I got them in here now. So yeah, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm nuts. I'm nuts right now, you guys. But I'm gonna have FOMO. That's what I was about to say. If I don't go, because I couldn't go to PlantCon in Houston a few months ago. I know a lot of you were asking me, why didn't you go? Because like, you'll live in Texas, your sister lives in Houston, go to Houston. And I primarily didn't go because I couldn't find a cat sitter. And so, yeah, I don't know, you guys. So the other thing I need to tell you is I think my parents have decided they're going to move to Houston. And some of you may remember they have a house already in Houston, like a townhouse, in addition to their primary house in the Austin area, because when my niece was born, they wanted to be able to have a place to go stay down there because they were thinking they would go down there a lot more because they would want to see their granddaughter, right? And so they wanted a place where they could go where they didn't feel like they were up in my sister's business all the time, because my sister does have anxiety issues. And so they just wanted to kind of be respectful of that. And they wanted to be able to bring their dog. And when Vera, my niece, was just a baby, they didn't want an 80-pound golden retriever who gets really excited to see anyone, regardless of their age, to be over there where he might get overly excited and accidentally, like, unintentionally hurt her, right? So they had bought this little townhome down there. And so they started going down there like a lot more, and everybody stopped coming up here. So my sister actually still hasn't been up here since before my niece was born, and my niece is turning 3 this week. My parents have been up here just for, I think maybe they've come once on a not special occasion, and then they've come for at least one holiday since my niece was born each year, whether it be Thanksgiving or Christmas. And so, yeah, so I'm like, okay, whatever. And they had never said that they had any intention to like permanently move to Houston, but my mom recently got diagnosed with Alzheimer's. This was not a surprise to me, you guys, because when I was going through my divorce, my dad was still working. My mom was already retired. So she came up here and stayed with me a lot. And I knew back then, and this was in 2020 is when my husband and I separated. And then 2021 was when our divorce actually was finalized. So, and of course, this is in the middle of the pandemic and everything. It was just crappy. But my mom was up here, and I just knew it was happening. I remember she wanted to, I said, she's trying to figure out what she was going to do for dinner. Reminder, I'm vegan. Nobody else in my family is. But I had some stuff in the fridge that was non-vegan because my husband was not vegan. And I was like, well, we could make you you could make a quesadilla, right? I said, I think I have the stuff for that. I've got this. And so she said, okay. So then that night, so this was like earlier in the day, that night she goes to figure out what she's going to have for dinner. And I said, well, remember I said there's stuff for quesadilla, just make a quesadilla. And she starts looking in the fridge, in the pantry, and she just turns and she looks at me and she goes, well, how do you make a quesadilla? She's made quesadillas many times in her life, you guys. So when she looked at me and said that, I knew immediately what was going on. And my grandmother on my mom's side passed away originally from what they said was dementia. After the fact, like the last month that she was alive, they finally realized she technically had Alzheimer's. Her sister, my grandmother's sister, also had Alzheimer's. And so I knew what we were facing. I was like, nope, this is not good. This is not good. And I told my family at the time, I was like, I'm telling you, we need to go get her tested, everything. But the thing was, they weren't seeing it because when she was home, with my dad, she was around her normal surroundings and everything, right? But when she was spending weeks on end with me outside of her normal surroundings is when she was getting confused. So as far as my dad was concerned, he wasn't seeing any of the stuff that I was describing. He's like, I think you're overreacting. I'm not seeing any of this. And I kept saying to him, it's because she's up here with me. You need to come up here and see. But he was still working, like I said, so he didn't really have a lot of time to come up there. And so, yeah, so this went on, and now we're 5 years later, and I kept saying, and other things would start happening at home. And my dad would tell me, like, okay, a weird thing happened, but you know, it's probably just natural aging, like natural memory loss. And I'm like, no, we don't need to be like acting like it is when there's a family history. So I've been really frustrated for about 5 years, you guys, because I knew what was going on. And I feel like she should have gotten tested back then and nobody would listen to me. And so finally it got to the point where, I mean, there was no denying what was going on. I mean, she would just repeat things 5 minutes apart, like she had never said it. And so finally my dad went and got her tested, and sure enough, she does have Alzheimer's. So we're dealing with that now. And my dad has now decided that he thinks it would be better if they move to Houston so that they can have some help because he's feeling overwhelmed. And then they can be closer to their granddaughter, and he thinks it would be good for my mom. And at first my mom was very not wanting to do this, and supposedly now she is willing to do this. But also, you guys, it's gotten worse to the point where I'm like, is she actually willing? Does she even remember that you guys have talked about this? So I don't know, but her doctor said it's not a bad idea. So they reached out to me the other day and were like, we think we're going to buy this house. What do you think of this house? And I was like, oh, really? Are we really doing this? And part of me is kind of upset because like nobody comes up here anyway. They moved down there. They're not coming up here. Like my dad claims that they'll actually be able to come up here more. I'm like, well, first of all, it's further away. And he's like, well, your sister can take care of Louis. We won't have to worry about trying to board him. And I'm like, the last time you left Louis, the dog, with my sister, you bailed or tried to bail on how long you were going to be up here for because my sister was stressed out and she let Louis sleep in the bed. And so her husband got pushed out of bed and had to sleep upstairs in the guest room. That is her fault. Like, don't change your plans for the trip to come up here because she let the dog sleep in the bed and can't handle like closing him in the bathroom for the night or something, right? I'm like, there are so many other solutions to this problem. So I don't know. I'm kind of just like, I don't know. They're going to do what they're going to do. It's fine. Like, obviously, if it is good for my mom, that's what I want done. But also, I keep telling them it would be easier for me to help because I'm not married. I don't have a kid that I'm having to take care of. I don't travel that much for work. My sister actually travels a lot more now than she used to. My sister works like 50 to 60 hours a week at her job. It's crazy. And so I'm just like, it makes more sense for me to be the one to help. But I don't know. So I've been contemplating too, like, should I move? Before they told me they were moving to Houston, I was like, should I move to Austin? Like, the plan has been to move to Hawaii, but do I need to move to Austin to help? And now I'm like, well, if they're all in Houston, should I just freaking move to Houston? I don't know, you guys. I hate to unload all this on you, but this is what's been going on in my personal life. And yeah, I just want to fill you guys in because I'm sure some of you have been in similar situations, and I would like to get some insight on kind of maybe how you made a decision. So please comment down below and let me know if you've had to make a similar decision or have insights for me. I mean, housing is cheaper in Houston, like, and I'm going to make money off of selling this house if I sell it right now. But also I don't really want to buy a house right now because interest rates are still icky. But houses are cheaper, so I could get equivalent house for cheaper down in Houston. I don't know though, but I don't really have any friends that live in Houston, but then I would be closer to family, right? I don't know. There's just so many things to think about. It wouldn't affect my work at all, right? Because I can do YouTube from anywhere. My plants would actually probably be a little bit happier in Houston because it's typically more humid. My skin won't be happy though, because I tend to break out very easily in super humid environments. But, you know, that is what it is. But yeah, I don't know, you guys. But that's what's going on with me. I actually think adding all of these in here wasn't a bad idea. Oh, I still got some gaps. So I'm just going to use the chopstick. Hopefully you can see there's some gaps there. I'm going to use the chopstick. I guess I somehow knock some leaves off in the process, but let me use this chopstick to try to get this a little bit further down in here, and then I think we'll be done. And I feel like this video is going to be insanely long, but some of you guys really like long repots. I'm super excited. This is already looking so much more full, you guys. So much more full. I'm so excited for it. Hopefully none of the cuttings die off. And because I am adding so much dry substrate in here, even though the center part of this plant was still a little bit damp, I think I'm gonna go ahead and water it because this dry part is gonna pull some of that moisture, probably already has pulled some of that moisture out. All right, just a little bit more to work down in here. All right, you guys, I think that is all filled in now, and oh my goodness, look how full it is up on top. This is gonna be so much fuller, you guys. Oh, I'm so excited. Okay. All right, you guys. Well, not the easiest Hoya repot I've ever done. Actually, this is the hardest Hoya repot I've ever done because all of the other ones that I've repotted so far have just been taking them out of the mix they were in when I bought them and putting them into my epiphyte mix. So yeah, good news is we don't have to repot Hoyas very often, and I anticipate having these ones in these pots for multiple years before I have to repot them again. But hopefully you guys have enjoyed this video. If so, please be sure to click that like and or subscribe button down below, and I look forward to seeing you again next time. Aloha!